So, let me tell you guys what happened on Sportcenter earlier today, because this was really interesting. The conversation turned to the Los Angeles Lakers, and what Pau Gasol, yes, the former Laker legend, had to say about the way this team is approaching the season. And honestly, his words hit home. He made a point that's been kind of overlooked lately, especially with all the noise surrounding the Lakers' long-term planning. Now, think about this for a second. All off-season, we kept hearing stories about the Lakers looking ahead to 2026, 2027, even further down the line, as if the only thing that matters is some hypothetical roster that may or may not even exist 3 or 4 years from now. And Pau basically said, hold on, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. What you do know is what you have right now. And that's powerful because he's right. Right now, the Lakers have 2 of the best players in basketball on the same roster. You've got LeBron James, still playing at a level that almost doesn't make sense given his age, and you've got Luka Doncic, who's probably about to put together an MVP-type season. 2 top 10 guys, 2 of the most dominant offensive engines we've seen in the modern game. How many teams in NBA history can honestly say they've had that combination? It's rare. And when you have that, you don't think about what's coming years down the road. You think about how to capitalize this very season. The discussion on the show really focused on that urgency, because in the NBA, windows don't last forever. You can plan all you want for 2027, maybe dream of adding another superstar, but there are no guarantees. We've seen teams build for the future only to never actually get there. Injuries happen, players get unhappy, chemistry falls apart. So Pau's message was simple: take advantage of the opportunity you have right now. And the panel also broke it down in practical terms. Look at this Lakers roster as it stands today. It's not perfect, no roster is, but it's dangerous. They've got size, playmaking, experience, and some new pieces that bring different looks. The big question is how all of that fits together. How does Luka adjust to playing with LeBron in a true 2-man game? How does a guy like DeAndre Ayton, who clearly has a lot to prove, fit into this puzzle? And what happens with someone like Austin Reeves, who might be forced to carve out a new role in this rotation? These are the details that will ultimately decide whether this team is just really good on paper or if they're actually championship caliber. Pau even emphasized that Ayton could be a big part of the solution. He's still young, still hungry, and with 2 elite playmakers feeding him. He doesn't need to reinvent himself. He just needs to run the floor, defend, and finish plays. And the truth is, having a guy like that might be the difference between coming up short and winning it all. Now, is this Lakers team flawless? Of course not. They could use more athletic wings, maybe a couple more 2-way defenders, and depth will always be something to monitor. But here's the thing, nobody in the NBA is flawless right now. Even the reigning champions had moments last season where they looked beatable. Denver nearly took them down. Indiana gave them trouble until Halliburton got hurt. That's the reality of the league right now. There isn't a Warriors with Durant-type juggernaut that feels untouchable. That door is wide open, and if you're the Lakers, this is the moment to walk through it. And that's what Pau was really trying to say. Don't get distracted by the long game. Don't waste time fantasizing about what's coming 3 years from now. Focus on this group, this roster, this opportunity, because right now, with LeBron and Luka, you absolutely have a chance to raise a banner. So here's where the conversation really picked up on Sportcenter. After Pau Gasol's comments set the stage about the Lakers focusing on the present, the panel went into detail about how this roster should be handled moving forward. And the point they made was pretty clear. If a good deal comes along, you absolutely take it, but you don't force it. You don't make a bad trade just to make headlines. And that's where I completely agreed. The Lakers, right now, have enough to start the season and see what naturally develops. Because let's be honest, an NBA season is long. Things happen that you can't predict. Maybe one of those younger guys takes a leap. Maybe somebody emerges in training camp or in the first 2 months of the season and fills a role you didn't expect. Maybe the team realizes the biggest need isn't a starting wing at all, but rather a backup center or an extra scoring punch off the bench. Those answers only come with time. That was the tone on the show. Be patient, let the season breathe, and then, if the right opportunity presents itself, you pounce. Because at the end of the day, when you have LeBron James and Luka Doncic, you're already ahead of the curve. 2 top 10 players, 2 guys who can win you games on their own, and 2 of the most dynamic offensive forces in basketball. That gives the Lakers a floor that's already extremely high. The analysts also dove into DeAndre Ayton's role, and this was fascinating. They basically said the Lakers hit the jackpot by pairing Luka with Ayton. Just think about it. Last year, Ayton was already ranked as one of the best pick-and-roll big men in the entire NBA, and that was without Luka. Now you're telling me he's going to be working with one of the greatest playmakers of this generation? That's almost unfair. The pick-and-roll between those two has the potential to be the best in basketball, and it makes sense. Luka is a maestro with the ball, and Ayton has all the tools to thrive as a rim runner and finisher. The panel even put it this way: if any other franchise, Utah, Charlotte, whoever, landed Luka and Ayton in the same 5-month stretch, we'd be talking about them as instant finals contenders. That's how significant this combination could be. And for the Lakers to have added Ayton alongside Luka and LeBron, well, that's a foundation that most teams in this league would dream of. Now, of course, there are some long-term questions. One of the concerns brought up was about Ayton's motivation after he secures his next contract. It's a fair point. Players sometimes lose that edge once they get paid. But even then, that's a problem for tomorrow, not today. Right now, Ayton looks like the perfect fit, and he's got a lot to prove in the short term. That's exactly the kind of energy you want from a big man in this position. But here's where the discussion turned interesting: the financial side. Because the Lakers aren't just thinking about Ayton. If he works out, he's going to be due a big contract. Luka, obviously, is already locked in as the cornerstone, but then you have guys like Austin Reeves, who's also due for a payday sooner rather than later. And if other role players, say someone like Jake LaRavia, step up, the front office will have decisions to make. That's why the idea of preserving cap space for 2026 or 2027, as we've heard all offseason, feels pointless right now. By then, most of these young guys will either be extended, traded, or gone. The picture is going to look completely different. And another big point made on Sportcenter was about LeBron's future. There's been all this chatter about him potentially leaving after the season, but to me, and the panel agreed, it doesn't make any sense. Unless you're somehow landing a superstar of the caliber of Giannis or Jokic, why would you even think about moving on from LeBron? Even at his age, he's still one of the best options you could possibly have. And with cap space looming, the idea of letting him walk just to sign a lesser player is flat out illogical. Because here's the truth: LeBron James might very well be the best free agent available next summer. And if you already have Luka, Ayton, and potentially a strong supporting cast, wouldn't you want to keep the guy who knows how to win at the highest level? That's why Pau's words about focusing on the present resonated so much. The Lakers don't need to think about life after LeBron just yet. They need to maximize what they have right now, because what they have is special. And then on Sportcenter, the conversation wrapped up with what I thought was one of the most important points of the entire debate. They looked at this whole idea of the Lakers planning ahead for 2026 or 2027, and the panel basically laughed it off. Because, let's be real, this whole strategy never really made sense in the first place. Think about it. Everyone was talking about cap space in 2026, and what happens when LeBron leaves? But what we've seen now is that the landscape of the NBA changes way too quickly to make those kinds of plans. For example, Jaren Jackson Jr. was brought up. People imagined how perfect it would be to slot him next to DeAndre Ayton. And sure, that sounds amazing, but it doesn't matter anymore. He just signed an extension with Memphis. He's off the table. That's how fast the market shifts. Guys you think might be available in a year or two often aren't. And the same logic applies to 2027. Everyone loves to speculate. What if Giannis hits the market? What if Jokic becomes available? But the reality is, if either one of those superstars even gives the slightest hint to their teams that they don't plan on staying, those organizations won't just sit and wait. The Bucks and the Nuggets would trade them before ever letting them walk away for nothing. And if that's the case, then the Lakers wouldn't just need cap space. They'd need assets, picks, and players to make a blockbuster deal work. Cap space alone doesn't get you those guys. And that's exactly why the panel emphasized, stop worrying about 2 or 3 years down the line. Nobody knows what the league will look like then. For all we know, the Lakers could be chasing their 3rd straight championship by that point, with LeBron still playing at a high level and Luka cementing himself as the best player in the world. Or, who knows, maybe things fall apart and Luka himself demands a trade. Nobody can predict that. So why waste energy on hypotheticals when the opportunity to win is staring you right in the face right now? What matters today is this roster, this group of players, this season. And when you look at the Lakers lineup, you can see why there's so much optimism. Luka is entering what could be his best season yet. Ayton has all the motivation in the world to prove himself. And then you've got role players. Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Marcus Smart, Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, all with something to prove. Some are in contract years, some are fighting to stay healthy, and others are trying to prove they belong in the Lakers' long-term plan. That type of hunger is exactly what can push a team over the top. The message from Pau Gasol at the beginning of the segment suddenly felt like the perfect summary for all of this. Focus on the now. Forget about 2026. Forget about 2027. Forget about waiting for some fantasy scenario where Giannis or Jokic magically becomes available. None of that is guaranteed. What is guaranteed is that you have LeBron James and Luka Doncic in purple and gold today. You have Ayton ready to silence doubters. You have depth, veterans, and young players who are all hungry to prove their value. That is the formula for going all in, and that should be the mindset. So by the time the segment ended, it was clear. This Lakers team has every reason to be aggressive about this season, and only this season. That doesn't mean you make reckless moves or repeat the mistakes of the past, but it does mean you stop daydreaming about the future and focus on the chance that's right in front of you. Because windows to win in the NBA don't last forever, and the Lakers' window is wide open right now.